and welcome to Fiction Fans, a podcast where we read books, and other words too. I'm Lily.
And I'm Sarah.
And before we start discussing Run with the Hunted by Jennifer Donohue, what's something great that happened recently?
Something good is that I went to a Star Wars burlesque show. It did mean I had to go into the city, but it was fun.
That sounds awesome. Was there a highlight? Was there one character that you were like, damn?
Well, the secret is that this was actually like 3 weeks ago. So
You don't remember? All right.
So I can tell you that I got a really great t-shirt. I liked the t-shirt.
That's what really matters anyway.
Mm-hmm. What is your good thing this week?
Well, it's not just good, it's great. I found my bra.
So it also involves taking off bras like mine did.
I mean, technically, because I had to find it, which means it was missing. Okay, I don't only own one bra. I'm pretty bad, but I'm not that bad. But you know how you have like a horde of comfortable garbage bras and you have one like nice bra?
Yes.
Not the stupid push-up bra that frankly kind of makes me look like an alien because it's so absurd. That's not even an option. No, my like reasonable, actual, nice undergarment. Based on where I found it, which is a suitcase that I haven't used since May. Apparently that's how long I've been living without it.
I mean, you haven't noticed that it was missing until now, so you didn't need it until now.
I've noticed it a little while. It's been a
Okay.
little while. I just didn't realize it's been that long.
I see.
But now it's back, and I can sit in discomfort like the rest of society.
We all applaud you for that.
I guess that is kind of a double-edged sword.
Well, congratulations and my condolences.
At least I don't have to buy a new one, and that's really what matters, right?
Very true.
So, Sarah, what are you drinking this evening?
I was going to open a bottle of wine, but then I decided that that was too much effort, so I opened cider instead.
Nice. I have made a disgusting concoction. That's a lie. It's delicious, but it is garbage.
I'm now worried about what's inside this concoction.
Yeah, just box wine and Sprite Zero.
Yeah, okay, that does sound kind of trash.
Yeah.
I mean, the box wine is fine. It's the addition of the Sprite that gives me pause.
It's like a homemade wine cooler.
Yeah, but like Sprite? Really? Sprite?
Well, sometimes I use seltzer water, but I wanted something a little sweet.
Seltzer water would be better. Man, if you're gonna do sweet, it has to be seltzer water and like simple syrup. Make it classy.
Oh, that's a lot of work, though. That's too much work. No. This is a garbage beverage here that we are enjoying tonight, or at least I am enjoying tonight. We got a box wine cooler, and I think that's basically going to set the tone for the rest of this recording. So you're welcome, everyone.
Just so you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, that's why we have this question at the top, because it's like, hey, here's what's happening.
Here's the mood for the episode.
Well, I can tell you my answer. Longtime listeners can probably guess my answer. But Sarah, read anything good lately?
I have been playing Final Fantasy XII, Zodiac Age. So no, I have read very little, unless you count subtitles because I have the subtitles on. I'm playing it in English. I mean, all of the voice acting is in English, but there's construction going on outside. So like, you know, it helps to have subtitles on.
That does not count. I'm sorry.
Darn.
I realized I haven't read any books lately, but I got onto a fan fiction binge. I think I'm actually over the binge now. I don't know. Like, there's sometimes when you start opening them and you read the summary and think, oh, that could be good. And then you start reading it and you're like, I don't actually feel like this right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of what I have now gotten to.
Mood reading fan fiction.
Oh, yeah, definitely. 100%. I read one work that was like Scary Mermaid, not Pretty Mermaid, like Scary Mermaid AU alternate universe, where one character was a sailor and then the other character was a scary sea monster, and of course they fuck.
Obviously.
Yeah, duh. That's the whole point.
Obviously and inevitably.
And that was like really good. And it was 70,000 words. I don't usually read fan fiction that long.
I'm impressed.
But I was like, I'll give this a chance. And at the time, I did stay up all night reading it. It was absolutely a mistake, but 100% worth it. And then it was a different fandom, but that's not the point I'm making. I found another one that was a siren sailor AU.
Different author as well.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. That's much more important. That's, I think, much more valid. And it was also on the longer side, not as long. It was like 20, 30,000 words. And I thought, oh, like, that last one was really damn good. Let's check this out. Let's give it a shot. And I got one paragraph in and went,
oh no.
Nope. Like, oh, the characters were using bad sailor talk in the dialogue. And then the narration was like, so I turned, or it wasn't in first person. God, I would never. So he turned to his good friend, and I was like, fuck you. No, double no, quadruple no. I cannot deal with this for even the bare scant 20,000 words that this is. And I might send you, oh God, of all things, it was Sherlock Watson. The good one. But I mean, it was mostly sea monster garbage, and it was great. It's like lots of survivalist shit. Anyway, that's been the rabbit hole I fell down recently.
Hey, that totally counts as reading.
That's true. But I think that was really the turning point when I was like, oh, let's give this a chance. Because the last one I gave a chance and it panned out great. And then I opened this other one and I
always feel really sad when that happens. Like, there's this premise that I'm interested in. It promises me some really good monster fucking, and then the writing just does not live up to it.
Well, I feel like monster fucking is where this is my all right philosophy moment with Lily. That's where you get like really stratified quality.
Yes.
It's either incredible and the actual story is very good and the relationship builds and the writing is top notch, or it's someone dipping their toes in for the first time. And I would never speak poorly on someone doing that, but I will also not read it.
I mean, I will sometimes read it depending on fandom and author and mood. But yes.
I think if something is extremely short, I will read it even if it's terrible, because I'm not investing that much time in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, at some point we had to cut that off because we got very distracted. And what I did read for this evening was Run with the Hunted, a novella by Jennifer Donohue, the first one in a series of, Sarah, I think you said there's 4 out now?
There are 4 out now. I believe that she has said that the 5th novella is going to come out sometime in October. So it's an ongoing series.
Well, I read the first one, which, well, we'll get to that.
I've mentioned these novellas on the podcast before because I've had just a lot of fun reading them. I think they should be action movies. Like, that's the kind of vibe they give off. Essentially, they follow 3 women who are, I guess, criminals. I was going to say semi-criminals, but no, they're basically just criminals.
There's a whole moment in this book where Bristol is trying to think how they are described by the government. And it's just a bunch of different adjectives in front of thieves.
Yes. So this book in particular centers around a diamond heist. We will talk more about that in the spoiler section. But it's very fun. I love these novellas to death. They're just such great popcorn books.
It did give me very broad, top-level Ocean's 8 vibes. Ocean's 8 is the Ocean's 11 sequel that stars Sandra Bullock and Cate Blanchett and Rihanna. It doesn't star Rihanna. She is in it. And it's just like very competent women being good at what they do. And holy shit, am I into that? And that's about as far as the similarities go. Not all female thieves. # not all female thieves. I'm going to start that right now. This book does a lot more interesting things with the plot progression, but I agree that's a spoiler. So we're not going to talk about the heist part for a minute.
We're just going to tease you.
I was very glad, however, Sarah, to hear from you that the novellas sort of cycle through the three main characters as far as points of view goes, because this first book was from the point of view of Bristol, and
as I was rereading this today, I was like, oh yeah, Lily is probably not very into this point of view character. I was not wrong.
You know, it's funny. If this book followed Bristol from a third person perspective, it probably wouldn't have bothered me. Because there's enough space there that I can get around it. But first person perspective is just so fraught. Like, there's so much that can go wrong. It's so easy to fuck up. And Donohue didn't even fuck it up. She just picked a main character that I could not fucking stand.
And like, I love Bristol. I mean, don't get me wrong. Bristol's an asshole. Like, she's kind of insufferable. And yet I find her so much fun to read about. Like, I would hate her in person. Like, no question about it. I would not get along with her. I would not be able to stand her. But for some reason, I just really love reading about like her point of view.
I mean, okay. I get that there is a fantasy fulfillment element, which I also enjoyed, because she's the glamorous femme fatale of the trio. She's the one who's great at social engineering and just always like flipping people on their heads in, you know, mentally, emotionally, socially. Always so poised and on top of it. And I enjoyed that aspect of her. Like, she has makeup. Spoilers. That was fun. But she's a pretentious douchebag, which is much softer language than I used in our notes. Which is also mostly fine, except she's also really rude to her, I'll say, coworkers. And she picked these coworkers. Like, if you...
Well, technically, we don't know how they got together as coworkers.
Okay. Oh, I guess she's not the one who found the heist, is she?
She's not the one who found the heist.
It was
That was Bits.
Bits, yeah. Okay, never mind. Well, if she thinks so lowly of them, she could have turned it down. Like, she's just so rude to them constantly. And I'm okay with her being rude to other people, but her being rude to these other two women who, frankly, I liked much more than her, even though they weren't even the prospective characters. It was just very difficult for me, to the point where I think every other page I called her a dumb in my notes. And I'm going to bleep that out because I don't use that word very often. It fits here. I will not inflict it on our listeners.
See, I don't know. I feel like her pretentiousness and her being a douchebag were kind of the point. And like, they were so over the top. And she's also self-aware about it. Like, she knows she's an asshole and she just doesn't care.
Okay, sometimes. When a couple of the characters are very suspicious of her because they know she's being manipulative, her reaction is, yeah, fair enough. And that was fine. That was great. That makes sense. But there are moments when she is surprised by Bits or Dolly, and she's like, wow, I can't believe they never shared this with me. And then the very next page, they say something, and she's like, wow, that's terrible. And it's like, yeah, that's why they never tell you anything, you dumb. Why would they ever share anything close with you when you're always so rude about it?
She knows she's self-absorbed. She just doesn't care.
Which only works when she's not, like, taken aback by people not trust. Like, that's why it's only Bits and Dolly that bother me.
All of those moments, she's like, oh yeah, we haven't talked about that, mostly because I haven't cared about it. Like, she's aware of that.
I felt like the self-awareness slipped with her coworkers, and that bothered me immensely.
I didn't feel like that so much, and thus it did not bother me as much.
Fair enough. I mean, she does some douchey stuff, but like you said, it can be fun to read about a douchey character. It's not always terrible.
Yeah. And I think I don't always like reading about douchey characters, even self-aware douchey characters. But I think what I enjoy about Bristol is both that she's unashamedly an ass, and also it's mostly, how to phrase this? It's mostly, I don't want to say harmless, because she is an asshole to her coworkers, but it's not in a way that undermines their competency. Like she acknowledges that Bits is the best at what she does and that Dolly is the best at what she does.
Oh, this is where I'm regretting not bringing my annotated book over here. There's a moment at the beginning where she changes the plan for the heist. And
okay, that's
they're annoyed with it, and she's just like, well, whatever, it's a better plan. And then later they do something unexpected, and she's like, whoa.
I mean, that is an asshole move. I agree.
She has a double standard.
Like she is an asshole.
Yeah.
She does have a double standard.
And that frustrates me. Like, I'm okay with there being an us versus them, but you can't be the only us. I think, okay, there is another us, which is the Marquis, who I did love the Marquis was great. The Marquis probably redeemed the first half of this book for me. They were incredible. They are an incredible good friend. And
they are a much better friend than Bristol deserves.
Oh, yeah. Like 100%.
No doubt about it. Bristol does not deserve the Marquis.
And Bristol gives them more respect and understanding than she does to her coworkers. And it's like, you chose to work with these people.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I very much feel in the beginning like they have a very superficial relationship, because we don't know how Bristol and Bits and Dolly got together. And I feel like they are just coworkers, people you know, but you don't hang out with. Like, I don't have a deep relationship with my coworkers, whereas I have a deep relationship with my friends, of which Marquis would be one of Bristol's.
That's true. That's true.
Like, I don't get the sense that these are bosom buddy friends who have gotten together to do a heist. Like, they're coworkers.
Yeah, that's a good point. But when you're picking a coworker to do a heist, there has to be some amount of mutual respect, or there doesn't. But I enjoy the story more when there is some amount of mutual respect. And I feel like that was missing from Bristol's side for at least the beginning of this book. I think it gets less bad, but she's also pretty classist. And that's just extremely grating for me.
I find her classism tolerable because it's very clear that, at least I think it's very clear that it's something that she has consciously learned. And so it's just another layer of her like assholishness.
She verbatim uses the phrase rags to riches to describe herself. And I think that makes it worse. Like, why are you so rude about people enjoying vending machine food?
I mean, I don't enjoy vending machine food.
Yeah, that's fine. But would you judge someone for enjoying it?
Depending on how much they ate, maybe. No, that's not true.
Yeah.
You can eat whatever you want. I don't care. It doesn't affect me.
Exactly. That's the shit that really bothered me. Also, a bouquet of vending machine food poking out of one cargo pants pocket is an absurd mental image. And I'm trying to envision how large these pockets are.
Or how small the vending machine food is.
Even just like one of those little bags of chips, though.
Maybe they're all like, I don't know, granola bars.
Okay, fair enough. I guess I just only buy chips from vending machines. That's my own bias showing through.
I mean, I think the last time I bought anything from a vending machine was in Japan.
Yeah, and that's a whole different thing.
That's a whole different thing.
And some of the vending machines in this book are more advanced. So this book does have a really cool sort of near future vibe. Maybe a little farther than near, close.
I definitely wouldn't call it near future. It's some kind of like semi-cyberpunk close future-esque.
Yeah, it's close future. That's a joke because in Stone Top, you have different ranges and it goes like hand, near, close, far. So if it's not near, it's got to be close. I explained the joke. You're welcome.
That went whoosh right over my head.
It was a good joke, though.
It was a good joke for the subset of people who play Stone Top.
Daniel will laugh at it for me. But it was very cool. There is some really neat technology. There's some neat, like cybernetic enhancements. VR is used in a very interesting way in this book, not from Bristol's perspective, but Bits uses VR constantly. And I know, Sarah, I think you mentioned the second book is from Bits's perspective.
The second book is from Bits's perspective, and we get a lot more exploration of the technology side of the world in that book, understandably so, because it's from like the big tech person point of view. So it is really cool to explore this world and explore the concepts and like all of the technology things and how everything is still recognizable, but like just a little bit different and cooler.
There's a very neat element where our main characters don't have to kill anyone because weapons are advanced enough that they can just incapacitate people without being lethal. And I don't think that's a spoiler.
I don't think that's a spoiler.
That happens pretty early on. The main confrontation is pretty early on in the book, and Dolly, the weapons expert, just takes out the security guard with science. With brute force, but her weapon is not lethal. And that just makes, I would never describe these books as cozy, but it sure does make them easier to read when you don't have to worry about the implications.
I think it's so much more fun when you can unabashedly cheer for the main characters because they're not killing people. Like, they're doing crime and it's not victimless, but like it's not bad.
And I think that's maybe why Bristol bothered me so much, because her bullshit got in the way of me just soaking in the over-the-top awesomeness that this book could have been and is for other people, but not for me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I love Bristol. Bristol is my favorite character by far, but I acknowledge that she can be frustrating to read about. I think you would really like book 3. Book 3 is the dog heist, which is from Dolly's point of view.
I mean, both of those things. Yes. So then we have our excellent classic question. Sarah, why should someone read this book?
You should read this book if you want a heist book that goes in interesting directions with the trope. If you want kick-ass female characters doing kick-ass things, namely stealing diamonds. If you enjoy Ocean's 8 or Ocean's 11. If you just want like a feel-good, very short popcorn book. And I say that like as a compliment.
Oh, I love popcorn.
Yeah.
Popcorn's delicious.
So like if you just want something to like take your mind off of whatever shit you've got going on for an hour and a half, this is a really great book to read for that.
If you have patience for some classist bullshit.
Or if you really enjoy reading about someone being an asshole, which I don't normally, but for some reason with Bristol, I really do.
I mean, it is amusing. She's not always miserable all the time. She's just miserable like 90% of the time.
I think her mannerisms are so affected and so over the top that it goes from annoying to enjoyable for me. But I can see how it would not cross that threshold for other people.
It didn't make it for me. However, I do like starting series from the beginning. And I absolutely loved the format of this book, the plot progression, which we're still going to get into in a minute. I literally can't talk about that without spoiling where the plot goes. And so I'm much more excited for books 2 and 3. And I'm glad I started with book 1.
I do think you need the context of book 1. They mostly can stand on their own, but like it does kind of help to have some of that context.
To To avoid spoilers, skip to 45:45. So I know we probably called this a heist book or a heist story at the beginning, but I would actually argue that it is not.
I think that the inciting action is a heist.
Well, yeah, there is a heist in
Yes.
the book.
Yes, there is a heist in this book. And so that makes it easier to call it a heist book than to say anything else about it, because like that's what drives the initial plot. And you don't want to give away any of the great twists that it takes.
Oh, yeah. You don't have to explain to me why we have a spoiler section.
I would actually say that it's the same thing for the dog heist story, to be fair.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would say if there's one thing that I learned about Jennifer Donohue as a writer reading this book, it's that she is very good at taking tropes that I'm familiar with and then growing with them, building upon them in ways that are so much more interesting than just indulging in the original trope. And I think the diamond heist is the obvious first example of that. That happens in the first, 10% of the book. The diamond heist happens so early.
It happens very early on. And when I first read this book, I definitely expected it to be more, I don't want to say relevant, but maybe more prevalent.
The basic bitch heist plotline.
Yes. Because I heard about it, when I first heard about it, it was in the context of diamond heist. And I was like, great, a diamond heist.
Which we just agreed is how you should describe the book.
Yes. But the story goes so much further than that. It takes it in such an interesting conclusion that I was really very pleasantly surprised. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was great. That was probably one of my favorite parts of this novella. The complication is that our heroes, our bad guys, bad gals, that's awful. Pretend I didn't say that.
Our criminals.
Yes, our badass criminals steal some diamonds, and that's fine. But it turns out that the diamonds have secret espionage information etched on them. So it's not just they are diamonds, it's that they are high-risk security data. And that obviously takes their situation to another level, which they aren't completely unprepared for, but they were not expecting.
Yeah.
And it was just really good.
I really liked how, although they absolutely were not prepared for it, or they were not expecting it, I should say, because they did have contingency plans in place. And they are...
Well, Bits and Dolly did anyway.
Bits and Dolly did, yes. Bristol, no contingency plans.
Shocked that her bumbling idiot coworkers could possibly do something right.
There is a little bit of that, but I really loved that they don't panic about it. They're like, okay, things went south in ways we didn't anticipate. That's okay. We're badass bitches and we're just gonna carry on with selling these diamonds. We're not gonna worry about the secret espionage implications. We're just going to get these off our hands like we planned.
Oh, I loved all of the characters, our three main characters' reactions to adversity. I feel like, okay, when we were planning this episode, Sarah, you and I had a pretty lengthy conversation about why these women don't count as Mary Sues, why they're not, over the top, perfect, ridiculous wish fulfillment people. And they are wish fulfillment to some extent, but no more than James Bond is. This is just 3 specialized James Bonds, and no one is justifying him to the greater pop culture audience. So why, when I read this book, I was like, okay, but let's explain why these characters aren't overpowered or whatever. That's garbage, and I'm sorry. I wish that wasn't my reaction.
Yeah, I mean, it is garbage. It shouldn't be the reaction, but I agree that we do tend to view female characters from a more critical lens when we shouldn't.
I mean, we're not even going to talk about Prey, partially because I know you haven't seen it.
No, I have not. I have not seen it.
Oh, it's a good movie, and it definitely suffers from that a lot.
I'm vaguely aware that it's a movie, and that's the extent of my knowledge.
Yeah, that's fine. But I would say that the three main characters in this book have triumphant competency, and that is so enjoyable to read. That is that popcorn element that you were talking about, right? Like, these women know what they're doing. They don't always get it right, but they are able to cope with the fallout, and they don't panic at any point, and I really loved that. They were just like, okay, what next? Like, we know we can do this, so what do we have to do to get out of it? And that made it never feel, well, it never felt like the stakes were that high, frankly, even though we had like several governments chasing them down. But I was like, yeah, these, as you said, badass bitches got this. Let's find out how they get out of it.
And honestly, from a story like this, I don't need to feel like the characters are ever like in genuine danger. I don't want to. For me, this is a comfort story, and I want to feel that there's enough danger that they are actually like getting into shenanigans, but not so much danger that it goes from shenanigans to actually like life-threatening.
And in that sense, isn't it technically cozy?
Cozy cyberpunk? I don't know if this qualifies as cyberpunk, really. There are definitely cyberpunk elements to the world.
Well, speaking of genres, I have weird definitions for. That's one of them. I think it's adjacent. It's definitely cyberpunk adjacent. It has, augmentations for people, but I don't think it focuses enough on the identity aspect, which to me, but that's also like, I'm weird about sci-fi. There has to be like a philosophy bit.
No, I mean, and I agree this isn't a cyberpunk novel, but I think it's a kind of cyberpunk world. Does that distinction make sense?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Oh, there's not enough corporate bullshit for it to be truly sci-fi. Or sorry, for it to be truly cyberpunk. Gotta be more garbage capitalism.
Yes, I will grant you that. I have not reread the other three novellas recently enough to talk cogently about them, but I don't recall any huge capitalism garbage. I mean, there's some stuff in the background, like in this book, for example, like Dolly talks about the bees.
But that's more dystopian than cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is a flavor of dystopia, but not all dystopia is cyberpunk.
I mean, I agree with you there. That's an example of capitalism bullshit that does appear in the books.
Yes, and the fact that bees are so hard to find. Oh, now is when I brag about all the bumblebees in my backyard. I won't do it. That's obnoxious.
Too late.
I just did
Too
it.
late.
You're welcome. No, it is a really cool world, and I'm really excited to read more about it. It is so similar to our world today. There's just like really tiny bits that go a little bit farther, and I think that's something that definitely has room for exploration, and it sounds like gets explored.
Well, I would say that it does get explored. Like, we get a lot more of that in Dolly's story, in Bits's story, because they're more heavily involved with that than Bristol is. Like, Bristol's very superficial, and Dolly and Bits are not quite as much.
I mean, would you say she's a dumb?
No, because I like her more than you do.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's not. So I think as we get these changing perspectives, we do get to see different aspects of the story. And that's one of the things I appreciate about Donohue, like switching POVs throughout the books, is that we get all of these different aspects of the world just because these characters understandably focus Like they have different focuses and different motivations. And I think that makes it really interesting to see the world from these different perspectives. And you get a much more well-rounded view of the world than you would if it was just from one point of view.
See, that's an interesting use of the first person perspective, which could make it worth it to me. You also mentioned that Bits's book has some strange, was it timeline or just conceptual shit going on?
I don't want to go into too much detail because that's a spoiler for a book that we're not talking about.
Right.
But because of things, Bits's book, which is book 2, has some interesting like timeline and perspective lapses, and it plays with perspective in an interesting way that I think you only could do in first person.
Fair enough. And I think you had mentioned that it wasn't your favorite, but that sounds like something I'm extra excited for, because that is the strength of first person, is that you can do that. And if you're not doing that, then why bother?
Yeah. Like it's not my favorite book of the 4, but I think it's really cool what Donohue does in that book.
It sounds like I will love book 3 because I love Dolly, which is true.
Yeah, I think Dolly and book 3 is going to be your favorite. That's my guess.
But the fun perspective stuff does also sound like something I'm interested in. So I'm very excited to continue this series. I just really did not enjoy reading the first book. And that part of that is definitely me, but I don't think I'm alone with hating dumb. So
I really didn't think she was that bad. I mean, she's an asshole, but like she's a kind of funny one.
Okay, the Marquis was like quote unquote on her team, but I needed more than just them. I can have an asshole character. I'm fine with that. But I needed her team to be a little bigger. And that frustrated me so much.
I don't know. See, normally I hate someone like Bristol, but for some reason, and I can't explain it. I really can't. Like I have no thought out commentary on it, but I just really enjoyed Bristol's perspective.
I mean, there's definitely something to be said for that. It's definitely consistent and well crafted. I just didn't enjoy it.
And I really did. If all of the books could be from Bristol's perspective, I'd be happy. Bristol's my favorite. I know. Oof. I know you wouldn't be. I know you wouldn't be. But I make no apologies. I am unapologetic in my love for Bristol.
Okay. I gotta ask though. One of the elements I loved about Bristol was how she interacted with the male, I'm going to call him an FBI agent. We have no idea who he's actually working for. But that's kind of the vibe
that I got. I would call him an FBI agent too. So
he's kind of the love interest for this book. They go on a couple dates, but they're also both very aware that the other one is working for the other side. So it's always like a two-faced interaction.
There's always a tension there.
Yeah. And every time they do interact, it's for both reasons. It's not like we're trying to date and get around the fact that we're on different teams. No, they're using each other the whole time. It's
which is which is
that
great.
Whole thing was very
like well I don't want any of this pretense or any of that kind of pretense. Like we don't know that the other is on the other side and we're going to hide it, and none of that bullshit. They know exactly what they're doing. They're attracted to each other, but they're still like working for their own teams with their own goals. I love that.
And because Will is they say the good guys, and there's a whole thing about how everyone thinks they're the good guys. That was also very well done. But in this case, Will represents the side that is not trying to just murder our 3 heroes. So that's nice.
But also they're still representing the government, so they're still kind of the bad guys.
There's definitely some antagonism. Anyway, that whole thing was very good. And I kind of feel the vibe that Will could come back. He doesn't die at the end.
No, she just leaves him.
Bristol just knocks him out. She does the classic knockout lipstick, which is so
I love
fucking
it.
good.
And I was not expecting it. Like, I know she'd been set up as this femme fatale. Like, she had all of the accoutrement and like everything, but like I still was not expecting that she would just leave him because they had developed this relationship. And I was so glad that she did knock him out.
One of the things that I was trying to articulate, and I don't think I'm quite there yet, is that Will is the romantic interest. And I almost tried to say he's the femme fatale. Homme fatale. Homme fatale.
But he's really not.
No, what this is looking at the femme fatale experience from her perspective, which I'm sure happens plenty, but this is a really good example of it that I really enjoyed. And yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
it. That's what it is.
Yeah, that is what it is. And I think that's part of what I really like about Bristol is that she is just unashamedly the femme fatale. And it manifests in ways that are very consistent with like femme fatale tropes, but you don't expect to see them from her perspective. And so they feel fresh. And it's just fun.
Well, that part of her I enjoyed. That part of her perspective I enjoyed completely. I feel like in this book, at least, she is completely understanding when Will is disgruntled, when she pulls one over on him, because she's like, yeah, I pulled one over on you. But when Dolly or Bits are disgruntled, she's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And that double standard bothered me a lot.
It didn't feel that antagonistic to me.
Well, that's fine. I may be dramatizing it a little bit, but I definitely have those notes in my Kindle version where I'm like, why are you surprised? You're such a bitch all the time.
But like,
of course this is how they responded.
Like I'm saying like she didn't feel that like genuinely surprised or antagonistic when things happened.
But she says she's surprised in the narration, and it's from her perspective, so I have to assume that's how she feels because it's first-person perspective. And if we're getting so meta that first-person perspective is not actually from that person's perspective, I missed that completely.
No, I that's not what I mean.
There are times when she says in the narration, why wouldn't they have told me this? Or why do they have a problem with this?
She follows up with, oh yeah, because I haven't been interested in them. Like, she's self-aware about it.
I guess. The fact that that even comes up, though.
People lie to themselves like that all the time.
It didn't feel genuine or sincere. Maybe just because I was so annoyed with her by then.
I think you were just annoyed with her by then, to be honest. But also we have diverged from talking about Will and Bristol being a femme fatale to talk about our feelings about Bristol again.
But that's an example of Bristol being Bristol and me very much enjoying it. Her character did not bother me the whole time. It was only when, I guess, I wanted her to have friends. Maybe that's what I'm saying. It bothered me that she didn't have friends. As she had the Marquis, who, again, I loved, but the Marquis is hardly in it at all. And so I just needed her to have someone on her side that she agreed was on her side. And the fact that she didn't got really old.
Yeah, I mean, like, I definitely feel like Dolly and Bits are coworkers and not friends in this book.
But how can you have a coworker that you're getting into a life-threatening situation with that you don't?
Because
like, I'm okay. Maybe this is me showing my ass, but I would not get into a life-threatening situation with someone willingly who I did not trust with my life. That feels basic.
I mean, because you know they're competent, but that doesn't mean you know everything about them.
But she questions their competency.
I don't think she questions their competency in the way that you do.
Or the way that I interpret it.
Or the way that, yeah.
Because I don't question
I mean, the way that you think she questions their competency. I think we're arguing in circles now. I don't think we're going to convince each other. I think that it's going to be bad listening at this point.
Fair enough. You spoiled a little bit, which I'm willing to spoil for our listeners, but I'll cut it if you think I should, that they maybe grow a little closer by the time Bristol comes back around.
I do think that they have a close relationship by the time we see Bristol's point of view again in the fourth book, yes.
So I think I will immensely enjoy the rest of this series, including Bristol's next perspective book. This was just a rough start, but even then, I can see the elements of it that I will enjoy later, knowing that it changes perspectives, knowing that Bristol grows. I'm very excited to read more. This was just a bad start for me.
I think Bristol is just not the point of view character for you. And I don't think she ever will be. I love her. God knows why, but I love her. But I recognize that she's not going to be for everyone. And I do think that you will enjoy the other point of view perspectives more. But she does, I think the areas that you find most frustrating about her do improve as the series progresses.
So, one thing that Bristol does, which does not actually bother me, it just reminded me of people who bother me. That's why it has become a pet peeve corner. She uses French in conversation. That's fine. And she's doing it on purpose to appear more bougie, and it works. So, whatever.
But something that we know from, because it's told in her perspective, that would probably bother you about her if it was told in third person. Her use of French.
Perhaps. That is not my pet peeve for today. Would you like to talk about first person more?
That's not your pet peeve. It's not related. I just wanted to point out.
Close third person exists. Anyway, Bristol uses French conversationally. She answers the phone bonsoir and shit like that, which is fine. But it does remind me of people I know. And when we were writing notes for this episode, I realized both of them were professors at the University of San Francisco. So we're just going to talk about pretentious bitches. People who use, how do I even say this? So there are words in English that are from other languages.
But they have been naturalized into English.
Yes, they're English words now. And I have encountered people who insist on not pronouncing them correctly. If they were actually competent in the native language and did it 100% correct, I would have no leg to stand on. But I have met people who insist on doing a half-assed job. And maybe that's really the pet peeve. Don't do a half-assed job at pronouncing a word. Just do it the bad English way or do it the correct way. At least for like place names, you know? Like Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It's Los Angeles. That's fine.
Yeah. I'm really torn. I agree with you in general, but then I think about me and how I pronounce anime. And I definitely pronounce it anime and not anime, which is the American way. I think partially because like it wasn't a mainstream word until I was an adult. And so I grew up pronouncing it with an at least semi-Japanese accent. I mean, I'm a quarter Japanese, and we do speak some random Japanese words in my household. So it's not like I'm intentionally being pretentious.
I mean, there's a tiny douchey element there.
Yeah.
But it's not bad. Like, I'm talking about my teacher who, on like the first day of class, said, "Everyone tell me where you're from." And some poor girl was from Carpinteria. And this bitch was, I don't know if it was genuine. I can't believe it was genuine because she was white as snow, but refused to comprehend the word Carpinteria. She was like, how can you be from the profession of carpentry? And after a very long time of this poor young woman explaining where she is in geographic relation to other places on the California coast, this teacher goes, "Oh, carpinteria." And I was like, no, fuck you. No one says that.
I at least don't care how people pronounce anime. I pronounce it my way. It doesn't, how other people pronounce it has no effect on my life. They can pronounce it however the fuck they want.
Right? I find it hard to believe that she was genuinely
She can't
confused.
be.
If she was, I have more questions.
She can't have been. I mean, it boggles the mind.
Yeah. And this is okay. I actually genuinely really enjoyed both of these teachers. I just hated the way they pronounced words. I'm sorry. I had an art history professor who insisted on saying Louvre, like 2 syllables. Louvre.
I could not deal.
And I was like, no, it's the Louvre or it's
Yes.
the Louvre. You can't half-ass
There's
that.
no middle ground.
No. Just don't. It's fine. It's the Louvre. Everyone knows what you're saying. I understand that it's a French word, but it's okay. No one is going around saying they're going to Paris for vacation. It's Paris. It's all right.
It's like the Jimmy Buffett song. He went to Paris looking for answers. No, Jimmy Buffett says Paris. Jimmy Buffett does not say Paris.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. I was about to do some gymnastics to justify that.
It's just whenever anyone says he went to Paris or they went to Paris, I inevitably think of the Jimmy Buffett song.
Well, good. That's fine. As long as he doesn't say he went to Paris.
No, he does not.
Like, it extends, right? There's a ton of words that we have in the English language that we have stolen shamelessly, like hors d'oeuvres. No one is saying hors d'oeuvres with a French accent, and if you are, you should be ashamed.
Unless you were in
yourself.
France trying to order something, in which it is okay.
Yeah, of course. It's all about context. And anyway, all or nothing, you guys.
Yes.
All or nothing.
I agree.
I'm going to complain about Louvre until the day I die.
As you should. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fiction Fans.
Come disagree with us. We are on Twitter and Instagram at FictionFansPod. You can also email us at fictionfanspod@gmail.com.
If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and follow us wherever your podcasts live.
We also have a Patreon where you can support us and find our show notes and some other nonsense. And probably not as much as there should be, frankly.
Are you saying there should be more nonsense or there should be more other content?
Both.
Very true. Thanks again for listening, and may your villains always be defeated. Bye.